everyone, this is Mary's World, and today I'm going to be reading an article from Pocket, and it's called The History Behind 8 Famous Tongue Twisters. And the subheading is, whether it's used for elocution lessons or to settle a bet between friends, every tongue twister came from somewhere. And this article was written by Gwendolyn Purd. Tongue twisters have been screwing up speaking abilities around the world for centuries. As entertaining and tripping over tricky terms can be, early English twisters were also used to teach pupils proper speech. In a note to teachers in his 1878 book, Practical Elocution, J.W. Schumacher reminded them of the higher motive of these confounding sayings. To the teacher, while many of the exercises may create amusement in a class, a higher motive than amusement has prompted their insertion. Practice is here afforded in nearly every form of difficult articulation. Whether it's selling seashells by the seashore or buying Betty Botter's bitter butter, some of these difficult phrases go way back to when elocution was practiced as routine as multiplication tables. Come along as we untangle the history behind a few familiar phrases. Fittingly, many tongue twister origin stories are just as naughty as the expressions themselves. 1. Peter Piper. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Peter and his famous pickled peppers first appeared in print in 1813 in John Harris's Peter Piper's Practical Principles of Plain and Perfect Pronunciation. But as is the case with many classic tongue twisters, the rhyme itself may have already been in common use by that time. Parentheses, the book offered similarly formatted phrases for each letter of the alphabet, and Peter clearly got top billing. End parentheses. Several spice enthusiasts have also suggested that Peter in question was based on 18th century French horticulturist Pierre Poivre, though that connection should probably be taken with a grain of salt, or pepper in this case, parentheses. Much like Mary Anning and a rumored seashore seashells, more on this later, parentheses, Poivre's ties to the poem, while feasible, aren't necessarily rooted in concrete evidence. Poivre is French for pepper. Piper was both Latin for pepper and a typical British last name, and the man was known for smuggling cloves from the Spice Islands in his day, so the supposed link makes sense. As a renowned gardener, Poivre may very well have pickled peppers with those stolen cloves, but we don't know for sure. 2. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck? How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? While it likely predates her vaudeville performer Faye Templeton is credited with putting the woodchucking woodchuck on the map. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood was the chorus of a number Templeton sang in 1903 in the Broadway musical The Runaways, parentheses not to be confused with the musical Runaways. Robert Hobart Davis and Theodore F. Morris wrote Templeton's woodchuck song, and a few years later, Ragtime Bob Roberts covered it in his 1904 record, boosting its popularity. Tongue-tripping refrain stuck around and even inspired the title of director Werner Herzog's 1976 documentary, How Much Wood Would a Woodchuck Chuck? Observations on a New Language, about the 13th International World Livestock Auctioneering Championship. More recently, scholars have focused less on the origin of the phrase and more on the answer to its central question. In 1988, a fish and wildlife technician for the New York Department of Environmental Conservation made national headlines when he posted, if a woodchuck could chuck wood, parentheses because they actually can, it would be able to chuck about 700 pounds of stuff. But that little detail must not have been the linguistic flow of the original rhyme. 3 and 4, Betty Botter and 2 tutors. Betty Botter bought some butter, but, said she, this butter is bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter, but a bit of better butter will make my batter better. Then she bought a bit of butter better than the bitter butter, made her bitter batter better, so 'twas better Betty Botter bought a bit of better butter. A tutor who tooted the flute tried to teach two young tutors to toot. Said the tutor, "Is it harder to toot or to tutor two tutors who toot?" Both these classic twisters can be traced to poet and novelist Carolyn Wells' writings in the late 1890s. Betty Botter go on to be included in Mother Goose's nursery rhymes, and both verses can be found in several variations. While we don't know who or what exactly sparked the characters of Betty or the tutor, we do know Wells was pretty prolific in terms of her writing. Her 1902 book, A Nonsense Anthology, another volume of silly linguistic gymnastics, would be her most famous, but she was also behind more than 100 other books, including mysteries and children's stories. As if her written contributions to the American language weren't enough, Wells was also known for donating her epic collection of Walt Whitman manuscripts and first editions to the Library of Congress. 5. She sells seashells. She sells seashells on the seashore. The shells she sells are seashells, I'm sure. And if she sells seashells on the seashore, then I'm sure she sells seashore shells. The story behind She Sells Seashells has gotten perhaps the most attention in recent years. Legend has it the rhyme is a tribute to 19th century English paleontologist Mary Anning. Anning was an impressive fossil hunter who is thought to have been responsible for scientific achievements from discovering the first articulated plesiosaur to being among the first to identify fossilized poop, though her male contemporaries had a frustrating way of swiping credit from her. Anning is known in scientific circles. Charles Dickens even wrote about his admiration for her after her 1847 death, but the idea that she's also the muse behind the tongue twister has given the general public a nice way to honor her as well. Of course, Stephen Winnick of the Library of Congress's American Folklife Center pointed out, we don't actually have anything that proves the rumored connection between Anning and the tongue twister. Many outlets cited the 1908 Terry Sullivan and Harry Gifford song that includes the phrase in its lyrics as the birth of this particular tongue twister. But Winnick found a handful of earlier instances of its use. Similar versions were included in Schumacher's elocution book and published in an 1898 issue of Warner's Magazine, for example, and parentheses. The first known suggestion that the verse was related to Anning seems to be a 1977 book, Henri de la Beche, Observations on an Observer, though it was only raised as a possibility and there was no source offered for the reference. 6. I scream, you scream. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. Tongues didn't get particularly twisted with this one, but they did get cold. There's some disagreement on who first came up with this ditty about everyone's favorite frozen treat. Throughout the 19th century, there were many jokes and comments about how similar ice cream and ice cream sound. But in 1905, a company selling ice cream freezers in Lebanon, Pennsylvania advertised, "Ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream." This is certainly ice cream weather. Have you a good ice cream freezer? While unlikely the first usage of the phrase, parentheses, something very similar, appears in Wisconsin a few months earlier, and parentheses, the rhyme probably became famous thanks to Howard Johnson, Billy Mull, and Margaret King, who wrote the phrase into a song of the same name in 1927. Warring's Pennsylvanians recorded the song, and it became a jazz standard in the 40s. It's been making people hungry and haunting ice cream drivers ever since. And 7 is one that was made famous from a movie, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Maybe the best known one-word tongue twister, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious isn't short on complicated backstory. Most people associate the mouthful of a nonsense word with Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke dancing with cartoons from the 1964 movie adaptation of P.L. Travers' book series Mary Poppins. But according to songwriters Barney Young and Gloria Parker, they'd used the word first, parentheses, or a slight variation on it, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, in their song, which was known as the Super Song. So when Disney came out with their song, written by Robin Richard Sherman, Young and Parker took them to court for copyright infringement. The Shermans claimed they'd learned a funny word at camp as children in the 30s. Young and Parker said Young had made up the word as a kid in 1921, and the pair had sent their song to Disney in 1951. They sued for $12 million. The judge in the ordeal was so flustered by the 14-syllable term in court proceedings, he insisted they refer to it as simply the word. He ended up throwing out the case, saying the tongue twister had been in common use in New York as far back as the 30s, but the controversy always lingered. Later, another instance of the word being used in 1931, this time spelled supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, was discovered. It had appeared in the Syracuse University student newspaper, and the writer of the column claimed she'd been the one who made it up to. 8. A pad kid. And this is the last one. Pad kid poured, curd, pulled cow. Not as recognizable as some other more traditional lines, this short sentence was developed by MIT researchers in 2013 as the world's trickiest twister. The phrase is deceptively harder than something like the ice cream song or even the woodchucking woodchuck. As part of the 166th meeting of the Acoustical Society of America, where the facilitators were looking to find how certain speech patterns work psychologically, volunteers were recorded during the project reciting different types of twisters, and Pad Kid caused the most trouble. Because of the phrase's alliteration and words with similar sounds, the brain makes it difficult to repeat quickly without mistake. Previously, the 6-6 sheep, 6 sheep sick was often cited as the world's toughest twister. Parentheses, it even held the Guinness World Record for a time, end parentheses. But as the official category no longer exists, the MIT creation just might take the tongue twister. So this has been Mary's World, and I will see you next time.